It was exactly 3:07 in the morning when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I rubbed my eyes, half asleep, thinking it was just another notification. But when I saw the message, every bit of sleep vanished. It was from my roommate, Maddie. It said, "Whatever you do, don't open the door." At first, I thought she was joking. Maybe she'd sent it to the wrong person. But then, before I could even type back, there was a knock. 3 soft knocks, slow, patient, like whoever it was knew I was awake. My name is Lena Carter, and I live off campus with my roommate, Maddie Brooks. She's my best friend, practically my sister. We've lived together for almost 2 years now. She's the calm, responsible one, the kind of person who double-checks the stove before bed and never forgets to lock the door. So when she sent that message, I knew something had to be wrong. Maddie was supposed to be working an overnight shift at the hospital. That's why I was alone. It was raining hard outside, and the apartment felt strangely quiet, too quiet. The kind of silence where you can hear the fridge hum and your own heartbeat. I checked the time again, 3:09 a.m. The knock came once more, louder this time. I whispered to myself, "Who the hell is that?" Then my phone buzzed again. Another message from Maddie. "I mean it. Stay quiet." My throat went dry. My first instinct was to call her, but when I did, her phone went straight to voicemail. That's when I started to panic. I slipped out of bed, careful not to make noise, and tiptoed toward the door. The hall light flickered from the storm outside, and the air felt heavy. I leaned toward the peephole, but there was nothing. No one there. I was about to step back when I heard it. A voice. Soft, familiar. "Lena, open up. It's me." It was Maddie's voice, or at least it sounded like her. But my stomach dropped because I knew she was miles away at the hospital. "Is this some kind of joke?" I whispered. The voice came again, same calm tone, same rhythm. "Lena, it's me. Please, I forgot my keys." For a moment, I almost believed it. It sounded exactly like her, the way she said my name, the little lift at the end of her sentences. But then my dog, Scout, growled. He never growls at Maddie. He's the friendliest little terrier you'll ever meet. But right then, his fur stood on end, and he barked like he saw something I couldn't. That's when my fear turned real. I texted Maddie, "Someone's here pretending to be you." No reply. The knocking stopped. Then, a faint scraping sound came from the living room window. Scout's bark got louder. I froze. Every instinct in me screamed to run, but my legs wouldn't move. I just stood there, gripping my phone, listening to the sound of the rain outside and the soft, steady breathing of something, or someone, on the other side of the glass. The room felt smaller, like the air itself was pressing in. I didn't know what to do next, but one thing was clear. Maddie's warning wasn't random. Someone wanted me to open that door, and they knew my name. If you were in my place, would you have opened it? Tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and make sure to subscribe for the next part of this story. You won't want to miss what happened next. I stood frozen in the hallway, my back pressed against the cold wall, trying to steady my breathing. The air felt thick, heavy, like the apartment itself was holding its breath with me. The lights flickered again, and Scout's growl turned into a low, restless whine. I wanted to believe this was some kind of misunderstanding, that maybe Maddie had come home early and was locked out. But deep down, something in my gut told me it wasn't her. The voice outside the door was too calm, too patient. It didn't sound scared or frustrated, just waiting. My fingers trembled as I typed another message. "Maddie, are you at the door or not?" No response. Then, my phone buzzed again, but this time, it wasn't from her. It was a call from an unknown number. My heart raced. Against every instinct, I answered in a whisper. "Hello?" No one spoke. Only a faint sound of static filled the line. Then a voice, distorted and low, almost robotic. "Lena, let me in." I dropped the phone and stumbled backward. Scout barked furiously, racing to the door like he wanted to tear through it. I grabbed him, pulling him close. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the leash. Whoever was outside knocked again, 3 times, slow and deliberate. Each knock felt like it echoed through my chest. Trying to think straight, I looked around the apartment for something to defend myself with. My eyes landed on the kitchen counter, where a half-empty mug of coffee sat next to a steak knife. I grabbed the knife, clutching it tight, even though my hands were slick with sweat. My brain was spinning, trying to piece it together. If Maddie was really at work, how did this person know her voice? The rain outside picked up, slapping hard against the windows. I decided to move toward the living room, maybe get a look from a different angle. As I crept forward, every step on the wooden floor creaked louder than it should have. I peeked toward the front door again. Nothing. But then I heard something new. The sound wasn't coming from the hallway anymore. It was coming from the back of the apartment, from the kitchen. I froze, listening. The faint, rhythmic sound of metal scraping against glass. Someone was trying to open the window. My stomach twisted. That window didn't even face the street. It faced the narrow alley behind the building. No one should have known it existed except Maddie and me. I crawled toward the corner, keeping low. The scraping grew louder, then stopped completely. Silence. Then a whisper. So close it made my skin crawl. "Lena, I'm inside." I gasped and clamped a hand over my mouth to stop the scream. I didn't know where the voice came from. It wasn't coming from the window anymore. It was inside. I could feel Scout trembling against me, his small body rigid, staring toward the hallway that led to the bedrooms. The power flickered, then went out completely. Darkness swallowed the room. I could still hear the rain, but now it sounded far away, muffled. I turned on my phone flashlight, sweeping it across the room. Everything looked normal at first. The couch, the desk, the bookshelf, but then the beam of light hit the hallway mirror. For a second, I thought I saw someone standing behind me. I spun around, the light shaking in my hand, but there was nothing there. My breath came fast and shallow. My mind was racing. Was I losing it? Was the fear making me imagine things? I didn't know what to believe anymore. The door to Maddie's room creaked open. I hadn't touched it. I could see the faint outline of the door slowly swinging wider, as if someone had nudged it from the other side. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. I pointed the light toward the crack of the door. "Who's there?" I said, my voice breaking. No answer. Scout suddenly lunged forward, barking wildly at the darkness. That's when my phone buzzed again. Another message from Maddie. My hands shook as I opened it. "Lena, get away from the hallway. I'm watching on the security app. Someone's there." I looked up, my throat tight. The apartment was pitch black except for the narrow beam of my phone light. I could see the door to Maddie's room still open. A shadow moved inside, slow, gliding, almost silent. It wasn't Maddie. It wasn't anyone I knew. I bolted back toward my bedroom, slammed the door, and locked it. Scout barked at the door while I pressed my phone to my ear, dialing 911. My voice shook as I whispered, "There's someone in my apartment." The operator told me to stay quiet and stay hidden, that police were on the way. Then, right outside my door, a soft voice whispered my name again. "Lena." This time, it didn't sound like Maddie at all. It sounded deep, strained, like someone trying to imitate her voice, but failing. I backed away, holding the knife tighter, praying the sirens would come soon. The voice kept calling my name, closer and closer, until I heard the handle move. My pulse hammered in my ears. Scout growled low, ready to protect me. I whispered to him, "Good boy, stay with me." Somewhere outside, a car engine roared, and I thought I heard faint sirens in the distance. But inside that dark apartment, with that voice whispering my name through the door, every second felt endless. And in that moment, I realized the scariest part wasn't the knocking, or the voice, or the darkness. It was the fact that whoever this was, they already knew me. They knew my name, my roommate, and now they knew exactly where I was hiding. I gripped the knife tighter, my palm slick with sweat, my heart pounding so fast it hurt. The sound of the doorknob rattling sent a jolt of panic through my chest. Whoever was on the other side wasn't trying to hide anymore. They wanted me to know they were there. Scout barked like his life depended on it, his small body shaking but unyielding. I whispered, "Good boy, stay close," and pulled him toward the closet. The sirens I'd heard earlier were gone now, just the echo of rain slamming against the windows, and that quiet, deliberate sound of someone trying to open my bedroom door. I pressed my phone to my ear again, whispering to the 911 operator. "He's inside. He's trying to get into my room." The operator's voice was calm but firm. "Stay hidden, Lena. Officers are minutes away. Don't engage. Don't make any noise." Minutes. That word felt like forever. I switched my phone to silent and crouched inside the closet, wrapping Scout in my arms. My breathing was shallow, the air warm and suffocating. Through the slats of the closet door, I could see the faint glow of my flashlight beam bouncing off the wall where I'd dropped it earlier. It was still on, flickering slightly, lighting up just enough for me to see the shadow under the door move, slowly. The intruder wasn't speaking anymore, just the sound of quiet footsteps and floorboards creaking. Then came the sound I'll never forget, the click of my bedroom door unlocking. My stomach dropped. I didn't even know how he had a key. The door creaked open, inch by inch. The light from the flashlight spilled across the floor, revealing a pair of wet, black boots. Mud and water pooled beneath them. Scout's growl grew louder, and I pressed him against my chest, whispering for him to stay quiet. My mind raced, searching for anything, any way to get out. The window in my room was too small. The only exit was through the same door he had just opened. I could hear him breathing now, slow, steady, almost rhythmic, like he was savoring every second of my fear. I needed to do something. Sitting still wasn't an option anymore. The fear was eating me alive, but under it, something else was growing. Anger. I wasn't going to just wait for him to find me. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking hands, and slowly reached for the closet door handle. That's when my phone buzzed again. I froze. The light from the screen glowed faintly inside the dark closet. It was a text from Maddie. "That's not me. Lock the back door." The message hit me like a punch. The back door. That meant whoever was here hadn't come from the front. He'd broken in through the back, the one I had forgotten to bolt earlier that night. My stomach twisted with guilt and fear. I wanted to cry, but there wasn't time for that. If he had a way in, maybe I still had a way out. The sound of boots scraping against the wooden floor grew closer. I could see the faint outline of a man's legs through the crack in the closet door. He was dragging something metal across the floor. It scraped, then stopped. I realized he was checking every corner, moving things aside. He was searching. He was looking for me. I held my breath as his shadow passed over the closet door. My muscles burned from staying still. Scout whimpered quietly, and I held him tighter, praying he wouldn't make another sound. The man paused. The room went completely still. Then he crouched down. I could see his hand reaching for the closet handle. My heart was in my throat. I knew if I didn't act now, I'd never get another chance. As his fingers brushed the handle, I kicked the door open with all my strength, slamming it straight into his face. He grunted and stumbled backward, dropping whatever he was holding. I didn't even look at him. I grabbed my flashlight with one hand, Scout with the other, and bolted past him toward the hallway. He shouted something behind me, but I couldn't make out the words. My only focus was the kitchen, the back door. I sprinted across the living room, nearly slipping on the wet floor. My fingers fumbled with the lock, finally yanking the deadbolt into place. Then I grabbed the nearest chair and jammed it under the door handle just in case. I turned to run for the front door, but the hallway was dark again. I could hear him moving, fast. My heart pounded in my ears as I ducked behind the couch. The knife was still in my hand, but I knew it wouldn't stop him if he had a weapon. I had to stay quiet, had to think. Then, through the sound of rain and my own heartbeat, I heard something new. Sirens. Real this time. Close. I felt tears sting my eyes as relief mixed with terror. But I didn't move. Not until I saw flashing blue and red lights reflect through the window. The man stopped moving. I could hear his footsteps retreating down the hallway toward the back of the apartment, maybe trying to escape. A loud knock followed, this time from the real police. "Police, open up!" The words hit like music. I jumped up, clutching Scout, and shouted, "In here!" Moments later, the door burst open, and 2 officers stormed in with flashlights and weapons drawn. They pushed past me, shouting commands, and within seconds, I heard the thud of footsteps, a crash, and then silence. One of the officers called out, "We got him!" I collapsed against the wall, shaking so hard I could barely stand. Scout whined and licked my hand, his tail wagging weakly. I looked toward the kitchen and saw them dragging the man out in handcuffs. His face was pale, his eyes wide and empty. I didn't know who he was, but the sight of him made my stomach twist. As the officers led him away, one of them turned to me and said, "You're lucky. He's been breaking into apartments for weeks. He records people's voices, plays them back to trick victims into letting him in." I stared at him, my heart still racing. My body felt numb, but one thought cut through everything. He hadn't just chosen any apartment. He had chosen mine, and he had used Maddie's voice to do it. The flashing lights from the police cars painted the rain-soaked street in streaks of red and blue. I stood barefoot in the doorway, drenched, shaking, and unable to process what had just happened. 2 officers were in my living room, their radios crackling as they spoke to someone outside. The man they'd arrested, if I could even call him that instead of the monster he was, sat handcuffed against the wall, his hoodie dripping water onto the floor. His head hung low, but every few seconds, he'd lift his eyes just enough for me to see the emptiness in them. There was no anger, no fear, just a cold detachment that made my stomach turn. One of the officers, a woman with sharp, tired eyes, guided me toward the couch. "You're safe now, sweetheart," she said gently. "We got here just in time." She draped a blanket around my shoulders and handed me a bottle of water, but my hands were shaking too hard to open it. Scout stayed pressed against my leg, growling softly in the intruder's direction. Another officer crouched near the man, removing a small digital recorder from his pocket. The officer examined it, then turned to the woman who had helped me. "He's got a bunch of voice clips saved. Listen to this." He pressed play. Maddie's voice filled the room. "Hey, Lena, can you unlock the door? I forgot my keys." My heart stopped. It was her real voice, perfectly clear, warm, familiar. But Maddie wasn't here. I looked at the man, horrified. The officer continued scrolling through the recordings, and I heard my own voice next. "Who's there?" I had said that earlier tonight. The realization hit me like a punch. He'd been recording me in real time. I felt sick. The woman officer saw my reaction and gently turned off the recorder. "We'll take this as evidence. You did the right thing by calling 911. If you hadn't locked that door, this could have gone a lot worse." My legs felt weak, so I sank back onto the couch, clutching the blanket tighter. "How did he even know Maddie's voice?" I asked. The male officer straightened, his face grim. "We think he's been tracking social media accounts in this neighborhood. Your roommate's voice was likely pulled from videos she's posted online. He's been using them to lure people into opening doors. You're not his first target." The words made my stomach twist again. I tried to picture Maddie at the hospital, completely unaware that her voice had been used to terrorize me. "Oh my God," I whispered. "Does she even know?" Before anyone could answer, my phone started vibrating on the table. It was Maddie. The officer nodded for me to pick up. My voice cracked as I answered. "Maddie, it's me." Her voice came through immediately, trembling with panic. "Lena, are you okay? I just got your messages. The police told me everything. I'm on my way home right now." Hearing her voice, the real one, made me break down. All the fear I'd been holding inside finally spilled out as tears. "He was here, Maddie. He was inside the apartment." There was silence for a second. Then she said softly, "I'm so sorry, Lena. I should have told you sooner. A man was seen hanging around the hospital parking lot last week. He kept asking about staff schedules. I didn't think it meant anything, but now I think he was watching me too." When she arrived 20 minutes later, she didn't even bother to take off her raincoat. She ran straight to me and pulled me into a hug. "I'm here now," she whispered, her voice steady but shaken. I could feel her heart pounding against mine. The officers took statements from both of us. They told us the man had broken in through the back door, pried it open with a screwdriver, and used the recordings to imitate familiar voices. He'd been stalking several women in the area for weeks, studying their routines, learning the layout of their homes. The thought made my skin crawl. When the police finally left, the apartment felt empty in a way it never had before. The walls that once felt safe now felt like they were closing in. Maddie and I sat together in silence for a long time, the only sound being the soft hum of the rain outside. Scout lay curled up between us, finally calm but still alert, his ears twitching at every distant sound. Maddie turned to me. "We're moving out tomorrow," she said firmly. I didn't argue. I couldn't stay there another night. Every shadow looked like a figure. Every creak sounded like footsteps. Before going to bed, or what we pretended was bed, I walked into my room one last time. The broken lock on the door hung loosely, swinging back and forth. My flashlight was still lying on the floor. Its beam pointed toward the closet where I'd hidden. I picked it up and turned it off. The silence felt different now, less threatening, but still heavy. I stood at the window, watching the police cars pull away, and noticed something glinting on the ground near the bushes. When I stepped closer, I realized it was a phone, his phone. The officers must have missed it during the arrest. I didn't dare touch it, but the screen was cracked and still faintly glowing. The wallpaper made my blood run cold. It was a photo of me and Maddie, taken from outside our window. I stepped back, my breath catching in my throat. That meant he'd been watching us long before tonight. I quickly called one of the officers back and handed it over when they returned. They promised to add it to the evidence, but their faces said everything. They'd seen too many cases like this. Later that night, when the adrenaline faded and the exhaustion took over, I sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the door. Maddie sat beside me, holding my hand. Neither of us spoke. The quiet was heavy but safe now, like the storm had finally passed. As I drifted into a restless sleep, I realized something. The scariest part wasn't that he'd broken in. It was that he'd used something so ordinary, our own voices, our social media, the pieces of ourselves we shared every day, to find a way inside. That night changed everything for me. From that point on, I promised myself one thing. I'd never let someone I didn't truly know have access to my world again. The next morning, the sun rose over a city that felt entirely different. The storm had passed, but the air still carried that damp chill that seeps into your bones. I hadn't slept much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the man's shadow standing in the doorway, heard his voice whispering my name, and felt that same cold fear rush back into me. Maddie was sitting at the kitchen table, wrapped in a blanket, scrolling through her phone in silence. She looked pale, exhausted, but alert, like she was forcing herself to stay awake so nothing could catch her off guard again. Scout lay beside her, head resting on her foot, eyes half closed but still watchful. We didn't say much at first. The apartment felt too quiet, too heavy with everything that had happened. The chair we'd jammed under the back door was still there. The wood splintered where the lock had been forced open. The police had taken most of the evidence overnight, including the man's phone and the voice recorder. But they left behind something we couldn't pack up and give away. The feeling that our home wasn't ours anymore. I brewed coffee, though neither of us really wanted it. The bitter smell filled the air anyway, something normal in a morning that wasn't. Maddie finally spoke, her voice low. "The police called a few hours ago. They found more recordings on his computer. He'd been watching people in this neighborhood for months." She swallowed hard, then added, "There were videos too, outside our building. Outside the hospital." The thought made me shiver. "How long do you think he's been watching us?" "I don't know," she said, her hands trembling slightly as she wrapped them around the mug. "But long enough to know our schedules, our routines, what time we take Scout for walks, even the sound of my voice." That part haunted me most. He didn't just break into our home, he broke into our lives. He took something as innocent as Maddie's voice, a sound that had always meant comfort and safety, and twisted it into something meant to hurt me. It made me realize how vulnerable we'd become without even noticing. Every picture we posted, every video we shared, every tiny glimpse of our lives online, it all became part of a trail someone could follow straight to us. By noon, we started packing. Maddie called her parents, and they offered to let us stay with them for a while. We didn't argue. Every sound in the apartment made me flinch. The groan of the pipes, the buzz of the refrigerator, the creak of the floorboards. I kept expecting to hear that voice again. As I folded clothes into boxes, I found the blanket I had wrapped around myself in the closet that night. It still smelled faintly like fear and rain. I thought about throwing it away, but something in me stopped. Maybe it was a reminder that I survived, that I wasn't just a victim. Maddie and I didn't talk much as we packed. We didn't need to. We both knew what the other was thinking, that we were lucky to be alive, that we'd come close to becoming another story on the news, and that maybe in a world where everything about us is shared and seen, we'd forgotten how much danger can hide behind familiarity. When we were done, I took one last look around the apartment. The walls looked the same, but everything about them felt different. The memories we made here, the laughter, the late-night study sessions, the quiet talks over tea, all felt overshadowed by that one night. Still, as I stood there, I realized I didn't want that night to define me. Fear had taken enough already. Maddie walked over, resting a hand on my shoulder. "You know," she said softly, "you handled yourself better than most people would have." "I was terrified," I said. "I thought I was going to die." "But you didn't," she replied. "You fought back. You called for help. You trusted your instincts. That's what saved you." I nodded, feeling tears well up in my eyes again. Not from fear this time, but from relief, because she was right. If I had doubted myself for even a second, if I had opened that door just to make sure, I might not be here telling this story. Later that evening, we left the apartment for the last time. The rain had stopped completely, and the air smelled fresh, like the world had been rinsed clean. Scout trotted beside us, tail wagging, his little paws splashing in the leftover puddles. I looked down at him and whispered, "Good boy, you saved me." He looked up as if he understood. A few days later, the police called again. They told us that the man had been connected to other break-ins in nearby towns. In some cases, people hadn't been as lucky. That knowledge hit hard, but it also brought a strange sense of closure. At least he couldn't hurt anyone else now. I learned something from that night, something I'll never forget. Safety isn't just about locks and alarms. It's about awareness. It's about trusting that gut feeling that tells you something isn't right. And it's about remembering that not everyone who sounds familiar has good intentions. Now, every time I see a photo or hear a voice online, I think twice. I've changed my privacy settings, deleted old posts, and installed cameras in every corner of wherever I live. But the biggest change is inside me. I'm not afraid anymore. Not in the same way. I'm alert. I'm careful. And I'm thankful. When people ask me what really happened that night, I tell them the truth, that a voice can lie, that safety can vanish in a whisper, and that courage doesn't always mean fighting back. It means not opening the door. So, if you ever hear your name called in the middle of the night and something feels wrong, trust that feeling. It might just save your life. If you found this story gripping, subscribe to my channel for more real-life thrillers and emotional stories, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Stay safe, stay aware, and never ignore the warning signs.